probably the first thing to note is the on key here at the bottom left. So to turn on calculator, go ahead and press that key. And you'll notice pretty quickly that each key has something typed or printed on the key, but then there's also, like with the number 1 key, there's this L1 and the letter Y written above it. And it's kind of hard to see with the lighting here, but the L1 is kind of a bluish color, purplish bluish, and the Y is in green. So those are secondary functions of each key. And so you will most likely use the primary, just what's written on the key, and the secondary, the blue. You'll notice in order to access these, the yellow and green option, the green and blue options, we'll have the blue key to help access the blue functionality and the green key to access green functionality. So for instance, with one of the ones we'll be talking about very soon is this key, is the square root. I know it looks really small, but it is, notice it's in the up to the left. It actually is bluish, but the light doesn't look like it at all. Maybe that'll help a little bit. Let's zoom in and see if that'll help. There, now you can see a little bit better that on the left in the blue is the square root, and then actually the letter I to the right to the green. But in order to use the square root functionality, we'll have to push the second key first. So let's go ahead and do that. Notice we are already on. So if we wanted to find the square root of 2, we would have to push that button, but we have to do the second first. So second, square root. And notice up at the top, it's now ready. Okay, square root of what? So I will go down here and push the number 2. So now we have the square root of 2. So when I press enter, which is the very bottom right key, pressing enter will now evaluate it for us. So now we'll see an approximation of the square root of 2. So the enter key, think of that as your equals key. Now another fundamental thing to address that confuses many students every semester is the difference between the negative key, as seen right here, and the subtract key. So if we had an equation that said, -3 plus -9, you could not push -3 minus 9, because the calculator doesn't know what to think with this first. So if it's a negative, you have to push negative. So it would be like this, -3 minus 9. And you'll notice that the negative is actually a skinnier and elevated a little bit as opposed to the minus key. So that's how you know you got the right one. So -3 minus 9 should be -12. I hit the enter key, that is correct. It is also, just to point out a couple other things here. Notice you have your parenthesis keys. It is important to use parentheses because if you're trying to divide a bunch of terms on top, so things are added or subtracted on the top of a fraction and things below, if you do not use parentheses properly, it will not evaluate it correctly. Also, just to point out here, this is what's known as the caret key, or the exponential, or the exponent key. And so that is how we would take, let's say you wanted to find out 5 to the 2nd power. We'd push 5. In fact, let's go 5 to the 7th power since we can see both those keys. So 5, this caret key right here, this is the one that puts it up to exponential. So 5 to the 7th power, press enter, and there you go. That's 5 to the 7th power.